Welcome from Sananda. Let's explore this question. Here's an initial exploration. We can consider these two views as being one about the present, everything as it should be, and two about the past, there has been a fall from grace. And so in that very simple sense, these two views can be reconciled in the sense that you can reconcile any past event with your present. You can say, well, that's what happened, but we're here now. But something more is asked for. Nevertheless, this recognition of the questions having in some degree a different category can be helpful in looking at how they are reconciled. Now let's take judgment out of each statement. Rather than everything as it is as it should be, we might say everything is as it is. And rather than speaking of a fall from grace, we might simply speak of there having been change. Consider for a moment. Imagine yourself a diver on a high diving board. And you leap off the high diving board and execute a perfect dive. You're scoring a 10. Now imagine yourself standing on the same diving board, but someone sneaks up behind you and pushes you off. Now you don't dive so much as fall. You haven't got time to rearrange your limbs in the proper order, and you fall with a splash or a splat. The direction of travel is the same. Both can be regarded as a fall, but one you don't experience as a fall because you recognize the skillfulness. You chose to jump, and not only did you choose to jump, but you did so with considerable skill. And so the whole notion of fall has judgment built into it. Need this be so? Our teaching and the teaching of so many spiritual teachers through the ages has been an encouragement to let go of judgment. And so if we play around a little bit with the notion of a fall, we might consider that part of the function of that fall is to give you the opportunity to teach yourselves a release from judgment. To have the ability to say that I can be at peace with all events, with every kind of expression of energy that the universe is capable of generating. And in coming to peace with every expression of energy, I come to a oneness. And in coming to a oneness, I am once again with Source. So that even if you regard the fall as a negative event, and the term certainly implies that, it can still be experienced as a means by which you come again to that reconnection with Source that the idea of fall supposes, at least to some extent, has been broken or stretched. Here's another fundamental way of looking at these two ideas, these two views, that may help to reconcile them. Consider the essence of as you understand them or experience them, or the ideas you have about these, the essence of male and female. In its essence, we might say that the female principle says, all is as it should be. Because the female principle is source. Everything comes from the source. There is an experience of completeness. And where there is a completeness, everything is as it should be. It is complete. There can be no more. There can, in a sense, be no other. But the male principle can be seen not so much as source, but as cause. That principle makes things happen. It creates events. It cannot, by its nature, believe in completeness. Otherwise, there would be no reason for cause to operate. Everything is complete. There's nothing to do. And so the male principle has to believe in an imperfection, something that has to be made perfect. And in a world of time, that leads to the idea of there being a direction of travel from the less perfect to the more perfect. And under particular circumstances, that sense of the less perfect can generate or support the idea of a fall. When I speak of these two principles that I'm calling the female principle of source, the male principle of cause, I'm not meaning to imply that this kind of energy is only found in females or only found in males. No, all of you contain both qualities, both notions, both energies, both understandings. And so you find yourselves in a world in which you experience embodied. You embody these principles yourselves by being male or female. We might suggest that some of the exploration that is happening at the moment in individuals who are born to one gender or the other, wishing in some way to move to the other gender, we might suggest that to some extent, one aspect of what is happening is that there is a desire to reconcile these two views that I've expressed as being in some way manifestations of a female principle and a male principle. However it might be, you find yourselves existing in a world of, and here's another way of opening up these two views, of being and doing. If you look at a state of being, then you can say everything is as it should be, because, as I suggested when I took the judgment out of that statement, everything as it is as it is. I am. That's all there is to it. But then you find yourself embodied in this very useful physical body that demands doing. At the very least, you have to breathe. And of course, you found yourselves mobile, needing to take care of your body by providing it with nourishment, sheltering it, clothing it, and so on. So by the very nature of becoming human, you engage in doing. You come into this world as innocent, but not blank. You're not blank sheets of paper. You have a history built into your energy field, a history that is both shared by humans in general, a collective history, but also you have a personal history. When I speak of history, I'm not necessarily speaking of events that happened in the world in the past. History can also be patterns of energy that you have adopted that have a relevance to your experience of being human, and that at least to some degree, in some portion, are experienced by you as memories, personal memories, or racial memories, or collective human memories, or ancestral memories, memories of other lives, and so on. But fundamentally, all of these are energy patterns. And there are some energy patterns that you really like. These, to put it simply, can be construed as your happy memories, the good times, both personal and general. Then there are other energy forms that are not comfortable to you. They're like a stone in your shoe. They invite you either to learn to accept them or to change them. And often it feels easier to take your shoe off and shake the stone out than to learn to walk on a stone. But really all you're dealing with are energy patterns. Energy patterns you like, energy patterns you don't like. Those energy patterns are not random. You're engaged in purpose here on earth. You have purpose. Many of you, perhaps all listening to these words or reading the transcript, are here in some way to help yourself for sure, but to help others as well. And so for many of you engaged in this help, you will have chosen particular patterns of energy that are distasteful not just for yourself but for others too, in order to explore exactly how you learn to transmute them. Earlier I offered the opportunity, the suggestion that you can take your shoe off and shake the stone out, or you can get used to walking with a stone in your shoe. But in truth, it's really more like this. That first of all you have to accept the stone in your shoe before it occurs to you to take your shoe off. And then you can decide whether the stone has a useful role to play in your shoe, or whether really it's better off somewhere else. What I'm saying is that as you encounter energy forms that are distasteful for you, then the first step is to accept that they are there. Having accepted they are there, you move into a relationship with them. You're not denying them. You're not turning your back on them. You're saying, okay, this is not what I like best of all, but I can accept that it exists. I can enter into a relationship with it, and I can explore how it might be transformed into something that I find more interesting or more acceptable. In doing so, you are changing yourself. So it becomes a moot point whether you are simply learning to accept the stone in your shoe, by adapting the sole of your foot to it, or whether you are changing the stone into something else. In a way, it doesn't really matter. Either way, you are growing. What has been uncomfortable for you becomes comfortable. Now let's take this back to the question, what's going on Earth? What on earth is going on? Such remarkable times you live in. There are many ways of viewing the world in which you live, your function in relationship to it. Experiencing a world of time, of past, of present, of future is one way. And so when we look into the hearts of humanity, what we see is an engagement with an idea of the past that has been very addictive, very powerful. This is the idea of having fallen from a higher state, of having either dived clumsily or having been pushed. But either way, there is a feeling of lack, of loss, of grieving, of guilt, of shame, so many different feelings embedded within the human psyche. You see yourselves as fallen beings, even if this is not the language that you use. One of the most common expressions around the world in many different languages, I'm only human. There can be a feeling of the having been this other state that once was yours. You might say that you wouldn't feel driven to create a better world if you didn't have that sense of there being a better world that can be. Otherwise, you would say, as that other viewpoint suggests, everything is as it should be. Nothing to look at here. Until you find yourselves within yourselves, having this itch, this urge, this fear, this doubt, this shame, this guilt. And like the poor cat with a tin can tied to her tail, it can feel as if the harder you run to get away from it, the louder it gets. And so humanity finds itself collectively at a point now where you've realized that running away doesn't work, that whatever it is you did or didn't do, whatever this notion of a fall from grace is, it is to be addressed. And that the ways that have been used in the past very often, the notion that you need to punish yourselves for your perceived failings or sins, evidently, or more and more evidently, is showing itself not really to work. It just adds to the feelings of inadequacy and guilt. Nevertheless, you can find in the world around you quite a push towards punishment. We might suggest that in a way, collectively, it might be that you as humanity recognize that time is running out for that principle of punishing yourselves. And therefore, if you're going to do it, you need to do it now. And so you've created various kinds of crises. The fear of overpopulation leading to starvation or famine, disease, war, the sense of the ability you have to blow yourselves up, to blow the entire planet up. The fear that even if you don't do those things, that you're going to find the environment becoming increasingly difficult for human life, and indeed the life of many species. So you've created before your eyes this vision of apocalypse, this vision of a further fall, because the lurking fear has been, along with that sense of we fell from something better, is the feeling that, yes, but it could be even worse. And it's such a temptation. There's something very exciting about creating a total disaster, an apocalypse. It has its own attraction. It's not what you're going to do, as we see it, but there's no point in denying the attractiveness of making everything as bad as it can be. So we come to that notion of a fall again. The sense that maybe if I'm fallen, maybe, the best, the simplest thing is just to keep on falling forever. An endless pit, a bottomless pit, an abyss. So that's a temptation too. It has its certain appeal. But none of this really matters. It's all a dream. It's all an illusion. So we're dealing with two kinds of truth here. These two views. The one that says everything as it should be, which can look like a complete denial of reality. Everything is as it should be. Just look at the world. And then a voice might say, what a ridiculous statement. And yet it can be truer than the view that says we're all doomed, we're all failures, we're all bad, we're all inadequate, we've all sinned, we're all criminals, we're not good enough. So what is this fall? As I've suggested earlier, you do not have to see a fall. Might it not be this? That you, the beingness, the consciousness you are, was given the opportunity to add to the totality of all that is by creating rich experiences. And that in doing so, you chose to become so engaged in what you're creating that you began to identify with it, that you began to forget to some degree that you are of the source, that you've never left the source of all, that all of this life that you're living is a wonderful life, but it's an invention. You created it. You're creating it moment by moment. And so you've created for yourself, perhaps many times, a dramatization of that movement away from source, the gift of creating realities for yourselves, and then becoming so engaged in that reality that you forget. So you've created the experience of falls from the state of grace. The state of grace, knowing you are one with source. The fall, losing sight of that. You've created dramatizations of that. An example of that would be Atlantis. A collapse of a world, a reality, a dimension, through the actions of those who are participating. And echoes of that exist very strongly in your world now. You might say that those who are involved in the collapse of Atlantis, as they reoccur in this world now, either as ideas or as individuals who are participants, there is a kind of division of opinion. Some who say, that went wrong. We should have used more dynamite. And others who say, that went wrong. We really shouldn't have used dynamite at all. And you can find these two principles working themselves out at the moment before your very eyes. Those who say, we need more power. We need more dynamite. And those who say, that's what caused the trouble in the first place. And so those who say, no, don't need dynamite, you're more of that source principle. Everything is complete. The divine is here. We do not need to make the world different. By its nature, it changes, and we can trust the change. So that we can, in that sense, say everything is as it should be. And then there are those who are more of, no, we need to do things. Need more dynamite. We've got to fix this, mend that. It's just coming from a sense of a lack, a loss, a feeling that something has to be made up for. And so this question that is asked today is hugely valuable. It's a fundamental question for you as humanity. How do you bring together these two ways of experiencing the world? The doing and the being. How do they find peace with one another? Because they can. Rightly understood, they naturally do. As you come into your own being, as you accept yourself as you find yourself to be, more and more, you open up that sense of everything unfolding in perfect time as it should. At the same time, you liberate those energies that you experience as mistaken doing, all of your errors, all of your faults, all of your limitations, all of your missteps, all of the bad you. You let these emerge, and you say to them, I accept you. You are as you should be. You are. And with that acceptance, every part of you that feels it has fallen from grace begins to know that it hasn't. And you move into a state of grace. And in that state of grace, you're not inactive. There is much to do. But the doing doesn't come from trying to compensate for your failures or prove that there weren't failures. It doesn't come from any kind of denial. It comes from acceptance. And in that acceptance, in that peace with yourself, you're still human, still have a physical body, still moving on the earth. But what you choose to do is birthed from the being. It's not compensating. It's not making up for. It's not forcing. It's celebrating. We are here now. And it comes to recognize that the notion of a fall from grace, however mesmeric it might be, however appalling or appealing, is fundamentally not actually how it is. You dived. You didn't fall. You're expert divers. You're scoring tens. So as you consider this notion, when you find it in yourself or when you read of it or hear others speaking of it, if you're interested, be interested for sure. But do not use it to attack yourself or anybody else. Remember that fundamental truth. You all do the best you can at the time. It's all it's ever been. And be content with that. You're not fixed. You're changing. Everything changes. The entire world. You're part of the change. Changed by the world, you change the world. And that changing is a beautiful unfolding. Let go of the judgment. Let go of the notion of a fall. Just relax into a kind of things happen state of mind. Forgive yourself. Forgive everybody else. Appreciate what you're creating. Trust your vision of a beautiful world. Allow it to come into being through you, through your trust, through your love, through your light. Thank you for listening. Go well.